Hi guys, today I want to do a little update on my watermelon plants, and I'm going to talk about how I've cared for them in the last few days. I fertilized them one time. I'm going to show you what I used, and maybe we'll talk about a couple other things as well. If you want to really find out what nutrients your plants need, then you need to get a soil test. I haven't had a soil test in a really long time. But what I do know is that early on in the growth and development of your watermelon plants, they do need a lot of nitrogen. Nitrogen promotes long vines and big leaves, and that's what you want your plants to look like. So I did fertilize these a couple of days ago. I don't have the box right here in front of me at the moment, but I think it's 24% nitrogen, 8% phosphorus, and maybe 16% potassium. Once they start flowering, a really important nutrient for them to be getting is phosphorus. Phosphorus promotes blooming and fruit development. So this fertilizer that I'm using is high in nitrogen. It does have phosphorus in it and potassium as well. Now in a few weeks, once these vines are really large and I'm starting to see flowers blooming, I'm going to cut back on the nitrogen. It's not that your plants don't need any nitrogen at that point, but I'm going to cut back on it. I'm going to try to go find a fertilizer that is a little more balanced, maybe something in the range of a 10-10-10 or something like that, or even something that's a little bit higher in phosphorus or phosphorus and potassium than it is in nitrogen. I usually only have to fertilize my plants with a water-soluble fertilizer a couple of times during the growing season. You may have to fertilize your plants more than I do. If you've watched my previous videos, then you saw that I do amend my soil with compost, chicken manure. I fertilize my plants with some slow-release fertilizer. I add some blood meal to my planting area. So I'm adding a lot of nutrients to my soil to begin with. I also have clay soil, which is really crappy in a lot of ways, but it does do a good job of holding on to nutrients longer than many other soil types. So again, you may need to fertilize more often than I do. I think that anything more than once every 2 weeks is too often. Most people are not going to need to fertilize more than that. Many people don't even need to fertilize that often. And here's one of my 2 cantaloupe plants. I know you guys haven't seen this since I put the seed in the cup, but I'm growing them pretty much the same way that I'm growing the watermelons. And if you don't have a big problem with squash bugs and you want to try growing some kind of melon, I think that cantaloupes are a little bit more forgiving than watermelons. They're a little bit easier to grow. But one of the biggest problems I've had with them for the past couple of years is squash bugs. They do eat the leaves the same way they eat squash leaves. I have found squash bugs in my watermelons as well, but not as bad as I find them in my cantaloupes and on my squashes. Then last year I planted some cantaloupes in a container, and I really didn't take good care of them. I didn't water them or fertilize them, and they pretty much fizzled out. So this year, hopefully we get some nice cantaloupes. I used to always grow really nice cantaloupes, so hopefully we can get back to that. These are the Bush Sugar Baby watermelons that I planted in my containers. They're looking pretty good so far. I planted these in pots here a few weeks ago, and to trellis them, I'm using upside down tomato cages, and they're stabilized with a couple of tobacco stakes. This definitely is not the best trellis to use to grow watermelons vertically in a container, but it is what I had on hand, so I just like to make do with what I have a lot of times. I'm going to make it work either way. You could definitely use something way better than this. You do need to train your watermelon vines up a trellis. Even though they do have tendrils like a cucumber, they don't grab onto things as easily as a cucumber would. I'm using this stretchy tape stuff that I found in my husband's toolbox. I'm not actually really sure what it's called, but I'm sure some of you know. You could also tie it up, of course, with strips of fabric or whatever you have on hand. I fertilized these plants with some fish fertilizer. I have used fish fertilizer before, but I don't think I've ever used it on watermelons. So I'm going to use that and see how it does. My fish fertilizer is a 5-1-1, which is 5% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, and 1% potassium. And unlike my in-ground watermelons, I am going to be fertilizing these container watermelons once every 2 weeks because this is a very well-draining soil and nutrients will leach out of it very quickly. And that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the update. If you want to follow along and watch me grow these watermelons, I'll put a playlist on the screen and at the end of the video. You can click on that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.